And all of these were stitched together to tell this story of the beauty of a second. And it ended up being a very powerful way of conveying that there's so much beauty in each of the moments that we have that sometimes we don't appreciate. And all it takes is a second. Another example of the same principle is a campaign that's gone on for a couple of years now called One Day on Earth. And One Day on Earth is essentially people can submit videos from a single day. So in 2008, it was August 8th, 2008, 888. Then September 9th, 2009. This past year, it was November 11th, 2011, so you get the pattern. And on that day, people go out and they take videos to record life in whatever part of the world they're at. And they collaboratively share this. And it's all leading towards a film project and a documentary that they're making to celebrate how maybe we're not that different from each other than we think we are. So, both have a social kind of angle, but it's a very interesting way of saying filmmaking is no longer just one group of people creating a film that everyone else consumes. Maybe there's a way of adding meaning to all of these little experiences. And the underlying trend that's really interesting about that is that that also explains the power of something insignificant like Twitter. If I go and I look at one tweet of somebody who's telling me what they had for lunch, that's pretty insignificant, just like a point on a painting. But if you look at the whole spectrum of everything that people are tweeting and everything in your network of people that are tweeting, now you start to see some meaning because you start to see shifts up and shifts down, shifts up and shifts down. So only by putting these pieces together do you actually hear from how far you walk, to what calories you consume, to what your heart rate is, to how well you sleep, and your sleep patterns. There's some great devices now that'll allow you to sleep for a certain amount of time and they'll wake you up at your optimal sleep rhythm, which probably would have been good for some of us who are suffering from jet lag and sleep patterns that are messed up these couple days. But a lot of these tools are allowing you to measure every aspect of what you do. Space, which is Clout. And Clout is a website that measures, or says to measure, tries to measure, your social influence. And what it does is it looks at all of the different properties that you use, so your Facebook account, all of the things that you choose to link to it, and it assigns you a score. And based on that influence score, brands can now come and they can select whether they want to try and work with you, give you free tickets to their upcoming films, give you products to try, all sorts of things. So now what we're doing is not only measuring our health, but also measuring things like our influence. So now as a marketer and as a communicator, I don't need to say, and this is a big shift, I don't need to say that my target audience is women 35 to 45 who live in this region, which is usually how I would have decided who I'm trying to target, at least from an advertising point of view. Now I can say, what do they do? How do they behave? What do they believe? And all of these tools help me to track that and to measure it. So yes, it does raise privacy issues and all the things that we were talking about earlier today. That's not really my topic here, so I can leave that for a different time. But the opportunity is there because people are volunteering this information in a way that's never been possible before. And when used well, not only does it allow marketers and communicators to create better, more relevant messages, but individually it allows us to track our behavior in a way that might actually influence us to change, to adopt healthier behaviors, to live healthier lifestyles, to sleep better, all sorts of benefits. The sixth trend, and if you'll remember, I'm hitting 7, so I'm getting close to my time. They said to keep it to 20 minutes, so hopefully I'm good. Yeah? Nobody said anything, so either you're asleep or I'm good. So co-curation. So content curation has been a big trend that a lot of people have been talking about. This idea that the internet is so crowded and full of information that we cannot rely on a well-designed algorithm to find what we need anymore. So for the longest time, everyone could create content, and you would just say, I'll just go to Google. And whatever the top 10 things are, that's what I'm gonna use, and usually it'll be right. But the challenge is, and maybe some of you have this too, that every time I search for something, it says this is page 1 out of 12 million pages that returned for the search query. So all 11,999,999 other pages can't be bad, right? There must be good stuff there. And maybe the best stuff isn't necessarily going to come up through an algorithm. So the idea of content curation is if I'm an expert in something, or I'm passionate about something, I will go out and spend more time than the average person online finding information about it. And if I can take that information and curate it into a single place, that will have a lot of value for anyone else who's looking for information about that topic. Because I've taken the time to do something that most people wouldn't. So if you think about that in terms of the internet, if you look at Yahoo, for example, when it first started in the 90s, that's how Yahoo started. Jerry Yang, the founder of Yahoo, created a directory that was filled with links of his favorite sites. And the reason why he did that was because there were so many sites and so many of them were bad that he created a directory to be useful for himself. And then other people started adding to it, and that became Yahoo. So curation goes way back to the beginning of the internet, and obviously before that, if you think about libraries and galleries and places where curators have existed for a long time. Co-curation, which is the newer trend, is this idea that now it's not just one influential person who's an expert in something, but it's many of us together. And by bringing many of us together collaboratively, we can curate something that's much deeper than just an individual thing. So Wikipedia may be an example of that, although that has a lot of creation behind it. Storyful, which I feature here, is a great example of that as well. And this is a website where you can essentially track the beginning and evolution of a communications trend. So I can say that first this person tweeted about something, then there was a CNN article about it, then there was a video posted on YouTube, and all of the things that happened, and I can explain how a process went, basically by entering it all into the website. This is another example for all the people who talked about science. You'll appreciate this. It's I double-clicked. I triple-clicked. I don't know how I did that. The second example is a website called Futurity. And Futurity is a place for people to share research with one another. And the idea behind Futurity is if we can get scientists and people who are interested in science sharing these studies in a non-academic way and adding commentary to it, then we can help people to identify information that may not necessarily come up through either their journal searches or through a broader search like Google. So again, the same idea of co-curating something to add value. Last trend that I'll mention here is something called, I did it again, tagging reality. And this is an idea based partially on technology, so this is where we go kind of more towards the technological trend, which is supporting it. So a lot of the other trends have been more about behavior. You don't necessarily need the technology. This one's very much about technology, and it's the idea that now mobile devices are at a point where the cameras on the mobile devices are so much better that we can actually recognize through the camera on our mobile device where we are. So Sony created this technology that they called Smart AR, Smart Augmented Reality, and launched it back in May of 2011. And this is a visual from the video about it. So a lot of augmented reality so far, maybe some of you have seen it, is you print something out, you hold it up to your webcam, and then it kind of creates an animation based on what they call an anchor object. So it sees what's on your image, and then it creates an animation that dances on top of that image. So that already exists today, whether you kind of tried it out or not. Very simple to use. What Sony did with Smart AR is they said, well, we don't need to keep that anchor image anymore. What we can do is we can unleash the 3D image, which in this case is the pink bunny, from the anchor image. So why does that matter? Well, one of the reasons it matters is because now what you could do, for example, is if I were to take my mobile device, hold it up to an image of the Colosseum in Rome, and it recognizes the Colosseum because it's a very recognizable object. Now you can animate a narrator to tell me about the Colosseum. So now it doesn't have to be anchored to that, but I have this virtual experience where my tour guide doesn't need to be a tour guide at all. It can be a virtual tour guide that I can experience through a mobile device. If I want to see what the Colosseum looked like, hundreds of years ago, you can show people that as well, right? And I'll show you a couple of examples of how this is being used also. So it allows you to unlock digital content in relation to what you're looking at, right when you're looking at it. So that's a tourism example. You could imagine that on-the-shelf examples in a retail environment, which is what this does. So you hold the camera up to a product, you can learn about the product, how it was made, where it's sourced, what the nutritional details are, everything straight from your digital device. So it's enabling you to do a lot of these different things. Here's an example of holding up a mobile device with anchors, and it's got all sorts of information. Here again is another building to get the historical information. So the reason why I bring this in is because the behavior, the underlying behavior is not that this technology exists. The underlying behavior is that now we have this contextual ability to get so much more information around whatever we're experiencing at a particular point in time. So now whatever we experience in any of these moments doesn't necessarily just need to be contained to what we see or what we hear. This conference is an example of that as well. You're not only experiencing what I say or what I put up here, there's also the live stream of Twitter commentary that you can choose to read or not read. I know things have been popping up, so maybe you couldn't choose not to read it or not, because it was popping up anyway. It's just another example of that. So the last thing I'll leave you with is why 7? Why did I only do 7 trends? Well, the good news is you can get the rest of them. There's a full report, including these trends, written out. Go and check this out, pass it on to anyone. There's no charge for that. And the other thing I'll say, and everybody got that? Yeah? Good switch. The other thing I'll say is there's a few other places to contact me or connect with me. So if you'd like to get any more detail on anything or disagree with anything, feel free as well. So that's my presentation. Thank you. Should I hand over to someone else, or what would you like me to do?